Tom, I know this has been a discussion amongst your coworkers the last few days. What is the feedback that you've gotten from fans and your readers in talking about the potential renovations to Walton Arena?
Well, it's along the lines of the things you guys were just discussing, which I heard, which is, good, intelligent discussion. The SEC just announced revenues, I think it was last week or possibly early this week, and they're going up. And so you got more and more revenues coming into your coffers, but the expenses, when you just start looking at them, salaries, buyouts, upgrades to facilities, those just keep skyrocketing as well. And so, a person that makes my kind of salary would be very uncomfortable trying to be a season ticket holder or, bring a large contingent to a football game or something. So it's just the cost of doing business in today's modern college athletics is expenses go up and costs go up.
Tom, the other thing we've been discussing this morning is jersey in the rafters, and your colleague Matt Jones wrote a really good piece talking with Sidney Moncrief and Joe Klein and mentioning a few other names and how, again, you've only got two players that are currently up in Walton Arena from the men's basketball team. What is your opinion of adding to or keeping the same of rafters or jerseys in the rafters in Walton?
I think more should go up. Sidney Moncrief, to me, look, when I was a little kid, Hank Aaron was my guy. And then we moved to Arkansas in like 76, and there I was, an impressionable teenager, couldn't drive yet. And when the triplets came along, I latched onto that. And so to me, that image of Sidney Moncrief on the Sports Illustrated coming back to dunk and all, it's just like it's very impactful, very powerful. So Sidney Moncrief to me is iconic, and he needs to go up there. I was walking behind him, walking to a game about 4 or 5 years ago, and I was like starstruck. And I'm very outgoing and forward. I'll usually go, Joe Klein in front of me or somebody. I go, hey man, I couldn't bring myself to even say, Mr. Moncrief, hello. So I was starstruck. He needs to be there. Look, Darren McFadden's jersey number, what is taking so long to retire Darren McFadden's jersey? So I could go on and on about this.
Yeah. Tom Murphy with us on the McClarty Daniel Hotline. Next chance for a legend to be born, I guess, would be Valentine's night. Tennessee coming in. I don't think many will be predicting the Hogs to upset the Vols, but this is, these are the kind of moments, the kind of environments against a player like Connect where, you can make a legendary name for yourself.
You could, and Connect certainly is doing a lot of damage. I detailed how the scoring race could come down to him and Mark Sears in conference play. They're both averaging over 20. But I was listening to the A&M broadcast driving back from something the other night, I guess the game, and Connect was out of the game for large stretches because A&M was driving the ball on him. And Rick Barnes was saying that, our guys were opening up their hips too much and allowing drivers to get past them. So Connect was coming out of the game for defensive purposes. So to me, that's a lesson that these Arkansas guards need to try to blow past him as well. But he's going to get his. Tennessee's certainly going to be have their mat on after trailing by as many as 22 points against the Aggies. Rick Barnes, he's got, I think, one win here with Texas. So, he's got a great record in Rupp Arena and all, but not a great record in Walton. So, if the Razorbacks want to keep any kind of this, late conference season mojo going, winning this game would be a huge, huge deal.
Yeah. So what should the mindset or the goal be moving forward? You've reintegrated Devo into the lineup. You're still trying to, I guess, reconfigure rotations at this point. Looking ahead on the next 8 or 9 games, what is a realistic goal for this team with what's left?
Finishing the rest of the season above 500 would be a big deal. They've got a long way to go to get their conference record back to 500, but, they've still got some tough games left, starting with Tennessee. They've still got to play Bama. They still got to go to Kentucky. there's some tough games left. So, but there's also the chance. They got LSU coming in here, Missouri coming in. They got A&M on the road. I just think continuing to show improvement, continuing to try to imprint an identity on who they are, and I do believe that a little more physicality from Mekhi Mitchell in the interior has been a part of that. And then let the three-point shooting maybe kind of take care of itself when guys are open and not push it as much. But just being able to stay on the boards with teams like Tennessee are going to be important, and then trying to settle on what your guard play looks like. I mean, that's just been a constant struggle all season long.
Tom, do we see Trevon Brazils play another minute this season?
We went through this with Nick Smith last year, right? I mean, and so I'm not sure what his knee maintenance looks like. I think we talked a couple of weeks ago about how Eric Musselman is an astute coach and showed grace in how he dealt with Devo Davis, and I think it reflected on his years in the pros. And I think the same thing applies here. I mean, let the trainers, let the doctors, and let Trevon all decide. And what happens, and they're trying to forge their identity without Trevon. And if he's able to come back, then maybe they're in a better place to reintegrate him into the lineup at that point.
And I think about the rotation that you mentioned. Chuck was talking about this with Muss last night. El Ellis doesn't play like the last two games, and then comes in and have one of the better games of the season. We've seen sometimes that's hurt. We've seen sometimes that help. Do you think players are extra motivated when they're not playing the last couple of games and they actually get the opportunity? How do you think that factors in to guys stepping up like El did on Saturday?
Well, if you're looking for team cohesion, you really hope they're motivated. I mean, so now that applies to Khalif Battle, right? I mean, he had some great games in pre-conference, hasn't been quite the same in conference, and I think his minutes are a little bit reflective of, attitude about defense and sticking to the game plan and things like that. It's nice to see that El Ellis, I mean, his post-game remarks were, I've been practicing this whole time. I've been ready. I know I can help this team. And you can see what his strengths are. The only, one of the knocks would be sometimes he'll go in full tilt and he gets into the trees and leaves his feet and doesn't have a decision. So that's led to some of the turnovers. But he cut down on that the other day, and Keon Minifield was a guy who would drive the baseline and get wedged to step out of bounds. So he's the one who needs to be a little bit more aware of his surroundings.
I love how they kind of made reference to that in the show last night. Muss just started kind of shaking his head to this point in time. Tom, Super Bowl wise, we had a lot of the reaction on Monday, and I know Kansas City doing what they did. What did you think of the incident between Travis Kelce and Andy Reid? And was that overblown, or do you think Reid or Kelce should have got more flack for basically getting in his 62-year-old coach's face?
Well, I didn't like it at all, especially making contact. I mean, you can be angry that you weren't in on that play or whatever, but man, that was not a good look. Kelce is a singular guy. I mean, there's anybody like him in the pros right now. And I've been on Twitter. I've just seen the post game and hanging out with his brother. That's just they live their lives out there, and I'm not a fan of that at all. Thankfully, you got a coach in Andy Reid who takes that kind of thing in stride, didn't lose his composure or what have you, and Kelce made a huge play. The play before the touchdown, it was a 2nd and 7, and so the Chiefs are so good at the way they scheme. They threw that pass on the interior to Kelce. I mean, that was all between the tackle boxes, and I had paused the game for 1 second to try to sync up my Chiefs radio broadcast to the game broadcast. And I saw 3 Niners converging on Kelce right around the 10-yard line and thought, oops, this is going to be 3rd and long. It's about to tighten up. And no, he breaks through those and gets all the way down to the 3 or the 4, moves the sticks so they're 1st and goal, and they score a touchdown on the next play. So the guy, he's a great talent. I think he's fortunate to have a coach in Andy Reid who can put up with his shenanigans, so to speak. I didn't like it at all. It's a bad example for the kids. And so many kids are going to pattern themselves after a guy like Travis Kelce.